The afternoon sun blazed mercilessly over Maplewood, Ohio, as Officer Sarah Martinez guided her patrol car through the quiet suburban streets. Beside her, Rex, a 5-year-old German shepherd with intelligent amber eyes and a distinguished black and tan coat, sat alert in his specially designed compartment, watching the world pass by with the focused attention that made him one of the department's most decorated K-9 officers. Sarah reached back absently to scratch behind his ear, a small ritual they'd developed over their 3 years together. "Quiet day, partner," she murmured, thinking about the mountain of paperwork waiting for her back at the station. Rex's tail thumped once against the seat, a brief acknowledgement before his attention returned to the street. Then the radio exploded with static and urgency. "All available units, we have a code Adam. Repeat, code Adam. 3-year-old male child missing from 4782 Pinewood Drive. Child was last seen approximately 20 minutes ago wearing a red t-shirt and blue shorts. Name, Liam Henderson. Respond immediately." Sarah's stomach dropped like a stone. Code Adam. Missing child. Every officer's nightmare. Her hands tightened on the wheel as she flipped on her lights and siren, the vehicle surging forward. In the back, Rex immediately sensed the change in energy. His ears stood straight up, his body tensing. Years of training had taught him that when his handler's heartbeat accelerated and her movements became sharp and purposeful, they were heading into something serious. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Sarah's voice was steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "K-9 unit responding to Pinewood Drive. ETA 3 minutes. "Copy that, Unit 12. Mother is on scene. Child has been missing for 23 minutes. We have 2 other units en route." 23 minutes. In the world of missing children, every second was critical. Sarah had seen too many searches that started with hope and ended in tragedy. A 3-year-old could wander into traffic, fall into a pool, get disoriented in woods, or worse, much worse. She pushed the patrol car faster, weaving through traffic with practiced precision. Rex barked once, sharp and focused. He knew. Somehow he always knew when they were heading into a search. Pinewood Drive appeared ahead, a tree-lined street of modest 2-story homes with manicured lawns and white picket fences, the kind of neighborhood where children rode bikes and families waved to each other. Today, it was a scene of chaos. 2 patrol cars already occupied the driveway of number 4782, their lights painting the suburban afternoon in urgent red and blue. Neighbors clustered on their porches, hands covering their mouths, children pressed against their parents' legs. Sarah pulled up fast, gravel spraying. Before she even opened her door, she could hear the crying, a mother's anguish, the sound that haunts every parent's nightmares. She moved quickly to the back, releasing Rex from his compartment. The German shepherd leaped out, immediately going into work mode, his nose already testing the air. Jennifer Henderson stood in her driveway, supported by Officer Ramirez on one side and what looked like a neighbor on the other. The woman was in her early 30s, her blonde hair pulled back in a disheveled ponytail, mascara streaking down her face. She clutched a small brown teddy bear against her chest like a lifeline, her whole body shaking with sobs. "Mrs. Henderson," Sarah approached with the calm authority she'd perfected over 8 years on the force. "I'm Officer Martinez. This is Rex. We're going to find your son." Jennifer's red-rimmed eyes locked onto Sarah, desperate for hope. "He was just right there," she pointed to the backyard with a trembling hand. "We were having a barbecue. My husband ran to the store for more ice. I turned away for just a minute. I was flipping burgers, and when I looked back, Liam was gone. The gate was open. I've searched everywhere. The house, the yard, asked all the neighbors. He's just gone." Her voice broke on the last word, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Sarah placed a steady hand on the woman's shoulder. "Mrs. Henderson, I need you to focus for me, okay? You're doing great. I need something with Liam's scent on it, something he wore recently or a favorite toy he handles a lot." Jennifer thrust forward the teddy bear. "This. He sleeps with it every night, won't go anywhere without Mr. Fuzzy." Sarah took the bear and knelt down beside Rex, holding it out to him. Rex, smell. The German shepherd's nose went to work, inhaling deeply, his nostrils flaring. His incredible olfactory system, with over 220 million scent receptors compared to a human's mere 5 million, was now processing, cataloging, and memorizing every molecule of Liam Henderson's unique scent signature. The boy's smell of baby shampoo, graham crackers, grass stains, and the distinct individual scent that every human possessed was now locked into Rex's remarkable memory. Sarah stood, scanning the property. The backyard was spacious, with a swing set and sandbox giving way to a wooden privacy fence. Beyond that fence, visible through the now open gate, stretched dense woodland, part of the Maplewood Forest Preserve that extended for nearly 10 square miles of untamed Ohio wilderness. Her heart sank. A 3-year-old in that forest as daylight began to fade. This was about to become exponentially more complicated. Officer Chen appeared from around the side of the house, shaking his head. Nothing. We've checked the house top to bottom, all the neighboring yards, the street. No sign of him. Sarah looked at the darkening sky. Thunderclouds were building on the horizon, massive and ominous. They had maybe an hour before the storm hit, maybe 90 minutes before sunset made the search nearly impossible. She made a quick decision. Rex and I are going into the woods. Chen, coordinate ground search with additional units. Ramirez, get animal control here in case we need more tracking dogs. And someone call for the helicopter if we don't find him in 30 minutes. She turned back to Jennifer, projecting confidence she didn't entirely feel. We're going to bring him home. Rex suddenly lunged forward, nearly pulling Sarah off balance. His nose was down, locked onto something. He strained toward the open gate, a low whine of excitement building in his throat. He'd found the trail. Good boy, Rex. Good boy, find Liam, find. The German shepherd exploded into motion, pulling Sarah toward the fence line. She broke into a run, her boots pounding across the grass. Behind her, Jennifer Henderson's desperate voice called out, "Please, please find my baby." They hit the tree line at full speed, plunging into the shadowy world beyond the suburbs. Branches immediately closed in around them, the temperature dropping several degrees in the dense canopy. Rex's powerful muscles bunched and released as he ran, following an invisible scent trail that only he could detect. Sarah's flashlight beam bounced wildly as she sprinted to keep up, her radio bouncing against her hip. The forest swallowed them whole, and the desperate search for Liam Henderson truly began. Somewhere ahead in those thousands of acres of wilderness, a 3-year-old boy was alone, lost, and in danger. But Rex was on his trail now, and the dog had never failed a search. Sarah held onto that thought like a prayer as they pushed deeper into the growing darkness, racing against time, weather, and every parent's worst nightmare. The hunt was on. The forest was a living maze of shadows and sound. Sarah's lungs burned as she crashed through undergrowth behind Rex, branches whipping across her face, leaving stinging scratches on her cheeks. The German shepherd moved with single-minded determination, his nose never leaving the ground except to briefly test the air, recalibrating his pursuit of Liam Henderson's scent trail. Every few seconds, Rex would veer slightly left or right, following invisible markers that only his extraordinary nose could detect. Unit 12 to dispatch, Sarah panted into her radio, ducking under a low-hanging branch. We're approximately 400 yards into the forest preserve, heading northeast. Rex has a strong trail. Copy, Unit 12, the dispatcher's voice crackled back, partially obscured by static from the dense tree cover. Ground units are establishing a perimeter. Helicopter is inbound, ETA 15 minutes. Weather Service has issued a severe thunderstorm warning. You've got maybe 45 minutes before it hits. Sarah's jaw clenched. 45 minutes. A 3-year-old had been out here alone for over 30 minutes already. In weather like this, with a storm approaching, hypothermia could set in quickly once the temperature dropped and rain began. And that was if Liam hadn't already injured himself falling or encountered one of the many dangers lurking in these woods: steep ravines, rapid streams, wild animals. "Liam," she shouted, her voice swallowed almost immediately by the vast expanse of forest. "Liam Henderson, can you hear me?" Only silence answered, broken by the rustling of leaves and the distant warning rumble of thunder. Rex suddenly accelerated, his powerful haunches propelling him forward with renewed urgency. Sarah's heart leaped. Had he heard something? Smelled something fresh? She pushed herself harder, ignoring the burning in her thighs, the branch that snagged her uniform shirt, the roots that threatened to trip her with every step. They burst through a particularly dense thicket and Sarah's stomach lurched violently. They'd reached a ravine, a steep drop of at least 30 feet ending in jagged rocks and a fast-moving creek swollen from recent rains. The edge crumbled under centuries of erosion, unstable and treacherous. If Liam had wandered this way in the fading light, if he'd gotten too close to the edge. Sarah's mind conjured terrible images. She forced them away, focusing on Rex. The dog stood at the ravine's edge, his body tense, nose working overtime. For a terrifying moment, Sarah thought he might indicate that the scent went over the edge. Her hand instinctively moved toward her radio to call in a recovery team. But Rex suddenly wheeled to the right, following the ravine's edge eastward. He hadn't lost the scent. Liam had turned away from the drop. The boy had somehow avoided the most obvious danger. "Thank God," Sarah whispered, following her partner along the treacherous edge. The ravine paralleled their path for another 100 yards before finally narrowing to a crossable point where a fallen tree created a natural bridge. Rex didn't hesitate, trotting across the moss-covered log with the sure-footedness of a mountain goat. Sarah followed more carefully, arms outstretched for balance, acutely aware of the rushing water below. On the far side, the forest grew even denser. The canopy thickened overhead, blocking out what little remained of the afternoon sun. Sarah clicked on her high-powered flashlight, the beam cutting through the gloom. In the distance, lightning flickered, illuminating the forest in brief, ghostly snapshots. Thunder followed, closer now, a deep rumble that seemed to shake the ground. "Liam," Sarah called again, desperation creeping into her voice despite her training. "Liam, if you can hear me, stay where you are. We're coming to get you." Her radio squawked. "Unit 12, this is Unit 7. We've reached the forest perimeter, no sign of the child on our grid." "Unit 12, this is Unit 9. Western quadrant clear, no contact." Each negative report felt like a weight settling on Sarah's chest. She and Rex were the only ones who had found anything, and they were pushing deeper into increasingly dangerous territory with a storm bearing down on them. Rex suddenly stopped dead in his tracks. Every muscle in his body went rigid. His ears pinned back flat against his skull, and a low, rumbling growl emerged from deep in his chest, a sound Sarah had only heard a handful of times in their partnership, and never during a routine search. Sarah's hand flew to her service weapon, her senses going on high alert. "What is it, boy? What do you smell?" The growl intensified. Rex's lips pulled back, revealing his formidable teeth. His stance shifted into something predatory, protective. Sarah's pulse hammered in her ears as she swept her flashlight across the darkening forest, searching for whatever threat had triggered her partner's aggressive response. Then she saw them, eyes. Multiple sets of eyes reflecting her flashlight beam from about 50 yards ahead, low to the ground, moving parallel to their position. Coyotes. A pack of them, at least 4 or 5 based on the Aishin. Sarah's blood ran cold. Coyotes typically avoided humans, but a pack could be dangerous, especially if they were hungry or protecting territory, and if they'd found Liam before Rex did. "Easy, Rex," Sarah commanded, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Easy, boy." But Rex wasn't backing down. He took 2 deliberate steps forward, his growl deepening to something primal and terrifying. Sarah had seen Rex in protection mode before, but this was different. This was a dog prepared to fight to the death. The coyotes suddenly scattered, vanishing into the underbrush. But Rex didn't relax. If anything, his tension increased. His nose lifted, testing the air, and then his ears suddenly pricked forward. The growl cut off abruptly, replaced by a high-pitched whine of excitement. He'd found something, someone. Rex lunged forward with explosive force, nearly yanking Sarah's shoulder from its socket. She released the leash, trusting her partner's instincts, and sprinted after him. Branches tore at her clothes and face. Her flashlight beam bounced wildly. Rex was barking now, sharp, urgent barks that meant discovery, that meant he'd located his target. Sarah crashed through a final wall of brush and stumbled into a small clearing dominated by a massive, ancient oak tree. Her flashlight beam swept across the space and froze. There, sitting cross-legged at the base of the oak tree, was Liam Henderson. His red t-shirt was filthy, his blonde hair stuck up at odd angles, and his face was streaked with dirt and tears. But he was alive. He was intact. He was. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The little boy wasn't alone. Standing 15 feet away, perfectly still in the shadows, was a coyote. Larger than the others she'd seen, probably the alpha. Its eyes gleamed in the flashlight beam, fixed intently on the small child. The animal's body language was strange, not overtly aggressive but not retreating either. It simply stood there, watching Liam with an unsettling focus that made every hair on Sarah's neck stand on end. Rex's entire body coiled, ready to launch into an attack that would be savage and final. Sarah's hand moved to her weapon, her training screaming at her to neutralize the threat, to protect the child at all costs. But before either of them could move, something impossible happened. Liam Henderson slowly, calmly stood up. His small, 3-year-old frame seemed absurdly tiny compared to the wild predator before him. Sarah's heart stopped. She started to shout a warning, to tell him to freeze, to stay down. Then Liam spoke. His voice was clear, steady, and utterly without fear. A voice that seemed to belong to someone much older than a toddler lost in the woods. He looked directly at the coyote with eyes that held an eerie wisdom. "You can go now," the little boy said softly. "You're just hungry, not mean. There's food that way." He pointed toward the north. "You don't want to hurt me, and they don't want to hurt you." For one impossible, breathless moment, the clearing seemed frozen in time. The coyote's ears flickered forward, its head tilting slightly as if actually listening to the child's words. Sarah stood paralyzed, her mind unable to process what she was witnessing. Rex remained coiled beside her, awaiting a command that Sarah couldn't bring herself to give. The coyote took one step backward, then another. Its gaze remained locked on Liam for several more heartbeats, and then, as smoothly and silently as smoke, it turned and disappeared into the darkening forest. The spell broke. Sarah gasped, rushing forward and sweeping Liam into her arms, her hands frantically checking him for injuries. Nothing. Not a scratch, not a bite, nothing. "Sweetheart, are you okay? Did it hurt you? Are you?" "I'm okay," Liam said calmly, his small arms wrapping around Sarah's neck. "The coyote was just checking on me. He wasn't going to hurt me." Sarah's hands were shaking. In 8 years of law enforcement, in dozens of dangerous situations, she had never felt her reality tilt quite like this. She held the boy tighter, her mind struggling to reconcile what had just happened. Behind them, Rex approached slowly, his aggression completely vanished. He sat down directly in front of Liam, and his tail began to wag. The real mystery was just beginning. Sarah's hands trembled as she held Liam Henderson at arm's length, her flashlight beam scanning every inch of his small body for injuries. Her medical training kicked into autopilot, checking for bleeding, swelling, broken bones, signs of shock. But the 3-year-old stood calmly in her grasp, patient and unnervingly composed for a child who'd just been lost in the woods and face to face with a wild predator. "I'm okay, Officer Sarah," Liam said, reading her name tag with surprising clarity for his age. "I promise, nothing hurts." "How do you know my name?" Sarah asked, her voice still shaky with adrenaline. "Can you tell me what happened? How did you end up all the way out here?" Liam's bright blue eyes, startlingly clear in the beam of the flashlight, looked past her to where Rex sat watching intently. The boy's face lit up with a smile that seemed far too peaceful for someone who just survived what should have been a terrifying ordeal. "I was following the butterflies," Liam explained, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. "The orange ones with black spots. They were so pretty and they kept flying just a little bit further. I wanted to see where they lived." Sarah's heart clenched. The innocent logic of a 3-year-old following butterflies without understanding danger, without comprehending distance or darkness, or the 100 ways a child could disappear forever. "Honey, your mom has been so worried. You can't wander off like that. Do you understand?" Sarah kept her voice gentle but firm, trying to impart the gravity of the situation without frightening him. "I know," Liam nodded solemnly, "but I knew someone would find me. The butterflies told me." Sarah opened her mouth to respond, to explain that butterflies couldn't tell him anything, but the words died in her throat. She just watched this child speak to a coyote and watched that wild animal listen. Who was she to say what was possible anymore? "Unit 12 to dispatch," she said into her radio, forcing professionalism back into her voice. "Child is located. I repeat, child is located and appears unharmed. We're at coordinates," she checked her GPS unit, "approximately 600 yards northeast of the Henderson property, just past the ravine crossing. Requesting immediate medical support to our location." "Copy that, Unit 12. Outstanding work. Paramedics are en route. Ground units converging on your position." Sarah heard the relief in the dispatcher's voice, could imagine the cheer that probably went up in the command center. She should feel that same euphoria. They'd found him alive, unharmed, against increasingly difficult odds. But something was happening here that she couldn't explain, couldn't dismiss, and couldn't stop watching. Because Rex, her partner, her highly trained, utterly professional K9 who maintained emotional distance from everyone except Sarah, was behaving in a way she'd never witnessed in 3 years of working together. The German Shepherd had moved closer to Liam without any command. He sat directly in front of the boy now, his tail wagging slowly, his tongue lolling out in what could only be described as a gentle, friendly expression. When Liam reached out his small hand, Rex leaned forward, allowing the child to touch his head, scratch behind his ears. "He's a good dog," Liam said softly. "He's very brave, but he gets scared sometimes. That's okay. Being brave doesn't mean you're never scared." Sarah's skin prickled with goosebumps despite the humid air. "Liam, how do you know Rex gets scared?" The boy's fingers traced along Rex's shoulder, moving with uncanny precision to the exact spot where a long scar ran through the German Shepherd's fur. A souvenir from 2 years ago when Rex had taken a bullet protecting Officer Tom Davidson during a domestic violence call gone wrong. The dog had recovered, but the physical scar remained, and the psychological impact had been profound. Rex had developed noise sensitivity, flinching at loud sounds, showing anxiety during gunfire training exercises. These were details Sarah discussed only with the department's K9 trainer and the veterinary behaviorist. Details that weren't in any public record. Details that a 3-year-old couldn't possibly know. "He got hurt here," Liam said, his small fingers resting on the scar tissue. "It was loud and scary. A bad man hurt Rex's friend and Rex tried to stop him. The loud noise made Rex fall down and he thought he was going to die." Sarah's mouth went completely dry, her heart hammered against her ribs. "Liam, I never told you that. Nobody told you that. How could you possibly know?" "Rex told me," the boy said simply, looking up at her with those impossibly wise eyes. "Not with words, not like how people talk, but I can hear what he's saying anyway." Thunder cracked overhead, much closer now. Fat raindrops began falling through the canopy, pattering against leaves and dirt. Sarah barely noticed. She was locked in place, watching her trained police dog, an animal bred and educated to maintain professional distance, to follow commands, to never show weakness or vulnerability, nuzzle against this child with something that looked startlingly like trust and affection. Rex's tail wagged faster. Then, to Sarah's complete astonishment, the German Shepherd lay down completely, rolling partially onto his side in a position of absolute submission and comfort. This was how Rex behaved only at home, only during downtime, only when he felt completely safe and relaxed. Never on duty, never during an active call, never. "It's okay now," Liam whispered to the dog, stroking his fur with surprising gentleness. "The loud noises can't hurt you anymore. You're safe. And your friend, the first officer before Sarah, he's not in pain anymore. He's okay now too." Sarah felt her knees weaken. She sat down hard on the forest floor, her back against the oak tree, unable to trust her legs to hold her. Tom Davidson, Rex's first handler, the man who'd been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and deteriorated rapidly, dying within 6 months of diagnosis. Rex had witnessed Tom's decline, had laid beside his hospital bed in those final days. After Tom's death, Rex had fallen into a deep depression, refusing to eat, refusing to work, howling mournfully in his kennel at night. It had taken Sarah months to reach him, to rebuild his trust, to convince him that working again didn't mean betraying Tom's memory. Even now, 2 years later, Rex still had moments where his grief surfaced, staring at Tom's old locker at the station, becoming subdued on the anniversary of Tom's death. "How do you know about Tom?" Sarah's voice came out as barely a whisper. "How could you possibly know about Rex's first handler?" Liam looked at her, and for a moment his 3-year-old face seemed to hold the weight of ages. Animals remember everything. They remember all the people who loved them and all the people they loved. Rex carries those memories everywhere. They're heavy sometimes, but they also make him strong. The rain intensified, drumming steadily now through the canopy. Sarah could hear voices in the distance, the other officers responding to her location. But she couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but stare at this child who spoke impossible truths. Liam turned his attention back to Rex, and his voice took on a soothing, almost melodic quality. "You still miss him. That's okay. Love doesn't stop just because someone goes away, but he would want you to be happy. He would want you to help people with Sarah. That's what you were born to do, help people, save people, find people who are lost." Rex's tail thumped against the wet ground. His eyes, usually alert and scanning for threats, were half closed in something approaching contentment. He made a sound deep in his chest, not quite a whine, not quite a groan, but something that sounded remarkably like relief. "You're not just a working dog," Liam continued, his small hand now resting over Rex's heart. "You're a friend, your family. Sarah loves you so much. She talks to you when she's sad, even though she thinks you don't understand. But you do understand. You always understand." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. She did talk to Rex in the patrol car in her apartment during long, lonely nights after difficult calls. She told him things she couldn't tell anyone else, confessions and fears and doubts that she buried under her professional exterior. She'd always assumed it was just her projecting, just her need for connection. But the way Rex was looking at Liam now, the way he responded to the child's words. What if he had understood all along? Flashlight beams cut through the rain-soaked darkness. Voices called out, getting closer. "Over here," Sarah managed to shout, finding her voice again. "We're here." Officers Chen and Williams burst into the clearing, breathing hard, their uniforms soaked. Both men stopped short, taking in the scene, Sarah sitting against the tree looking shell-shocked, Liam kneeling calmly beside Rex, the German Shepherd lying in complete relaxation despite being on duty. "Holy," Officer Chen breathed. "Is that Rex? I've never seen him like that with anyone except you, Sarah." "I haven't either," Sarah admitted quietly. Officer Williams spoke into his radio. Child is secured, appears unharmed. We're bringing him out now. Tell the mother her son is safe." But he too couldn't stop staring at the unprecedented scene. A 3-year-old child and a trained police dog connected by something that defied every protocol, every training manual, every logical explanation. Liam stood up, giving Rex one final pat. "You're a good boy, Rex, the best boy, don't forget that." The German shepherd's tail wagged harder, and he looked at the child with what could only be described as pure adoration. Sarah rose on unsteady legs, lifting Liam into her arms. The boy wrapped his arms around her neck, and for the first time since they'd found him, he finally seemed like a normal 3-year-old, small, vulnerable, exhausted. "Can Rex come with us?" Liam asked sleepily against her shoulder. "He found me. He should get to see Mommy too." "Yeah, buddy," Sarah said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "Rex can definitely come." As they started the trek back through the forest, Rex walking close beside them like a guardian angel, Sarah realized that nothing about her job, about her life, would ever quite make sense the same way again. Some connections transcended training, transcended logic, transcended the very rules of reality she thought she understood. And she just witnessed one. The journey back through the forest felt surreal, like moving through a dream where the normal rules of reality had been suspended. Rain fell in steady sheets now, turning the forest floor into slick mud that sucked at their boots. Lightning split the sky in jagged white lines, followed by thunder that shook the trees. Yet despite the storm's fury, Liam remained calm in Sarah's arms, his small body relaxed, his breathing steady and deep. Rex walked beside them like a sentinel, closer than protocol dictated, his body language protective in a way Sarah had never witnessed during a rescue operation. Normally, once a missing person was found, Rex would maintain his professional distance, awaiting the next command. But now he pressed near, occasionally glancing up at the child with something that looked disturbingly like reverence. Officer Chen led the way with his flashlight, while Officer Williams brought up the rear, both men uncharacteristically quiet. Sarah could feel their confusion, their unspoken questions hanging in the rain-heavy air. They'd seen something in that clearing that their training hadn't prepared them for. "Unit 12, what's your ETA?" The radio crackled against Sarah's hip. "About 10 minutes, she responded, adjusting Liam's weight against her shoulder. "The terrain is rough with the rain, but we're making steady progress." "Copy that. Mother is waiting. Paramedics are standing by. Media has already gotten wind of this. We've got 3 news vans setting up outside the perimeter." Of course the media was there. A missing child found safely always made for feel-good news. But Sarah found herself hoping they could avoid the cameras, avoid the questions. How could she possibly explain what had happened in words that would make sense to anyone who hadn't been there? "Officer Sarah," Liam's small voice spoke near her ear, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." "Why are you sad?" Sarah nearly stumbled over a root. "I'm not sad, honey. I'm happy we found you." "No," Liam insisted with that unsettling certainty. "You're happy about me, but you're sad inside. You're sad a lot, even when you smile." Officer Chen glanced back, his expression questioning. Sarah shook her head slightly, not now, not in front of the others, but her heart had begun racing again, that same disorienting feeling from the clearing washing over her. "Liam, I'm fine, really." The boy pulled back slightly to look at her face, his blue eyes searching hers with an intensity that made her want to look away. "You miss your sister. You think about her every day. You wonder if you could have helped her." The forest seemed to tilt around Sarah. Her step faltered and Officer Williams reached out to steady her. "Martinez, you okay?" She wasn't okay. She was the opposite of okay. Because Liam Henderson, a 3-year-old child she'd met less than 30 minutes ago, had just referenced the most painful chapter of her life, something she'd never spoken about to anyone in the department. Her sister, Rebecca, dead at 19 from a drug overdose. Sarah had been away at the police academy, too wrapped up in her own ambitions, too convinced that Rebecca's problems were just teenage rebellion that she'd grow out of. She'd missed the warning signs, ignored the desperate phone calls, told herself she'd deal with it when she got back. She never got the chance. Rebecca was found unresponsive in a friend's apartment, needle still in her arm. That was 7 years ago, and not a day passed that Sarah didn't wonder if she could have saved her sister if she'd just paid more attention, just come home one weekend, just been there. How? Sarah's voice came out strangled. How do you know about my sister? You carry her with you, Liam said simply, his small hand touching Sarah's chest, right over her heart. Like Rex carries his first officer, the people we love don't leave us just because they go away. They stay right here, but it makes you sad because you think you failed her. Tears mingled with rain on Sarah's face. Officer Chen had stopped walking, turning back to stare. William stood frozen, his flashlight beam wavering. You didn't fail her, Liam continued in that calm, ancient voice that seemed to belong to someone else entirely. She made her own choices. You couldn't have stopped it. She wouldn't want you to be sad anymore. She wants you to help other people like you helped me tonight. That's why you became a police officer, to save the people you couldn't save before. Sarah's knees buckled. She sank down onto a fallen log, still holding Liam, unable to stand under the weight of emotions she'd kept buried for 7 years. Sobs tore from her throat, ugly, broken sounds that echoed through the storm-dark forest. Rex immediately pressed against her leg, whining softly, his head pushing under her free arm in the way he did when he sensed her distress during their rare, vulnerable moments at home. But he'd never done this on duty, never shown this side of himself to other officers. Jesus Christ, Officer Williams whispered, what is happening right now? I don't know, man, Chen replied, his voice shaken. I really don't know. Liam wrapped his small arms around Sarah's neck, patting her back with the gentle awkwardness of a toddler trying to comfort an adult. It's okay to be sad sometimes. It's okay to miss people. That means you love them a lot. Love is the best thing people can do. Sarah held him tighter, this impossible child who spoke impossible truths, and let herself cry for the first time since Rebecca's funeral. In the middle of a storm, in the middle of a forest, in the middle of a rescue operation, she finally let herself break. Minutes passed. The rain continued its relentless assault. Finally, Sarah drew a shuddering breath and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm sorry, she managed. I don't know what came over me. Don't apologize, Chen said quietly. He'd moved closer, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by something more serious, more human. Whatever just happened here, I think we all need a minute to process it. Sarah looked down at Liam, who gazed back at her with those two wise eyes. Who are you? She whispered. How can you know these things? I'm just Liam, the boy said with a small smile. But sometimes I hear things that other people don't hear. Sometimes I know things that I shouldn't know. Mommy says I'm special. Grandpa was special too before he went away. Your grandpa? Williams asked, finding his voice. Who was your grandpa? He was a police officer like you. He had a dog like Rex. His name was Duke. Liam's face brightened with the memory of someone he'd never actually met. Grandpa loved Duke so much. They worked together for a really long time, helping people, finding people who were lost, just like Rex and Officer Sarah. Sarah's mind raced. Liam, when did your grandfather pass away? Before I was born. Mommy says he got sick in his body, and Duke got sick in his heart because he missed Grandpa too much. They went away together. Officer Chen's radio crackled. Ground units, what's your status? Mother is getting anxious. Chen looked at Sarah, silently asking if she was ready to continue. She nodded, standing on unsteady legs, adjusting Liam's weight against her hip. Rex rose with her, staying close, his warm presence grounding her in reality, or whatever this new version of reality had become. They walked in silence for several minutes, each person lost in their own thoughts, trying to reconcile what they'd witnessed with their understanding of how the world worked. The forest began to thin, lights visible through the trees ahead, the Henderson property, the emergency vehicles, the crowd of people waiting. "Officer Sarah," Liam said as they approached the tree line. "Yes, buddy. Thank you for finding me, and thank you for being sad with me. Sometimes people need to be sad together so they can be happy again." Sarah kissed the top of his muddy head. "Thank you, Liam, for everything." They emerged from the forest into chaos, flashing lights, voices shouting, cameras already rolling despite the police perimeter. But Sarah's attention fixed immediately on Jennifer Henderson, who stood frozen in her driveway, hands covering her mouth, her entire body shaking. "Liam," she screamed, breaking into a run. Sarah set the boy down, and he ran toward his mother on unsteady toddler legs. Jennifer swept him up, collapsing to her knees on the wet pavement, clutching her son and sobbing with the kind of relief that only a parent who's nearly lost their child can understand. Paramedics moved in, but Jennifer refused to let go, even as they began their assessment. "Is he hurt? Please tell me he's not hurt." "He appears completely unharmed, ma'am," the lead paramedic said, shining a penlight in Liam's eyes. "Pupils are equal and reactive. No visible injuries. Heart rate and breathing normal. It's honestly remarkable, like he just went for a walk in the park." Sarah stood watching, Rex beside her, both of them dripping wet and covered in mud. Officer Chen approached, his voice low. "Martinez, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me." "Okay. Did that kid really just, I mean, the things he said about you, about Rex, about—" Chen struggled to find words. How could he know those things? Sarah looked at her colleague, a good man and a good cop who just had his entire worldview shaken. "I have absolutely no idea, Chen, but I was there. You were there. We all heard it." "I'm going to need to include this in my report," he said slowly. "But I don't even know how to write it. Child demonstrated unexplained knowledge of officer's deceased sister, and K9's trauma history sounds insane." "Write what you saw," Sarah said. "Let someone else figure out what it means." Officer Williams joined them, his face pale. "My body camera got all of it, everything he said in that clearing. I just reviewed the footage on my unit. It's all there." "Good," Sarah said, surprised by her own certainty. "People need to see this. I don't know what this is, but it's real and it's important." Thunder rumbled overhead, softer now as the storm began to move east. Liam looked up from his mother's embrace, his eyes finding Sarah and Rex across the crowded yard. He smiled and waved, a simple gesture from a simple child. Except nothing about Liam Henderson was simple. And Sarah knew, with absolute certainty, that this night would haunt and inspire her for the rest of her life. The Henderson living room felt too small for all the people crammed inside it. Paramedics had moved their equipment indoors, away from the media circus gathering outside. Liam sat on the couch wrapped in a warm blanket, munching on animal crackers while a paramedic checked his vitals for the third time. Jennifer Henderson hovered nearby, unable to stop touching her son, stroking his hair, holding his hand, reassuring herself that he was real and safe. Sarah stood near the doorway with Rex at her side, both of them still soaked from the storm. She should leave, file her report, go home and process what had happened. But she couldn't move. Something held her there, an invisible thread connecting her to this child and this moment. Officer Chen was in the kitchen, already on his phone with the captain trying to explain the unexplainable. She could hear his frustrated voice. "Sir, I know how it sounds, but you need to see the body camera footage. All of us witnessed it. The kid knew things he couldn't possibly know." Jennifer finally looked up from Liam, her eyes finding Sarah across the room. "Officer Martinez, can we talk, privately?" Sarah nodded, following Jennifer into the hallway while Rex remained by the couch, watching Liam with that same devoted attention that had never wavered. In the narrow hallway lined with family photos, Jennifer's composure finally cracked completely. Fresh tears streamed down her face. "I need to tell you something," she whispered urgently. "About Liam, about what happened in those woods." Her hands twisted together anxiously. "You must think I'm crazy or that my son is, I don't know, disturbed or something. The way he talks sometimes, the things he knows." "Mrs. Henderson," Sarah interrupted gently, "I don't think you're crazy, and I don't think Liam is disturbed. I think he's extraordinary. But I also think there's something you need to tell me." Jennifer nodded, wiping her eyes. "Liam mentioned his grandfather to you, didn't he? In the woods." "He said his grandfather was a police officer with a K-9 partner named Duke. He said they both passed away before Liam was born." "That's right." Jennifer took a shaky breath. "My father was Detective James Walsh. He worked for the Maplewood Police Department for 32 years. His K-9 partner, Duke, a German Shepherd like your Rex, was with him for the last 12 years of his career." Sarah's mind raced through departmental history. James Walsh. The name stirred something in her memory, a legend from before her time, a detective known for an almost supernatural ability to solve cases, to find missing persons, to know things he shouldn't know. "Wait," Sarah said slowly. "Detective Walsh, I've heard stories. The other officers talk about him sometimes. They say he solved cases that seemed impossible, that he could walk into a crime scene and just know things." "That's him." Jennifer's voice filled with pride and pain. "Dad was special. He could read people's situations in ways that seemed impossible. He always said it was instinct, good training. But my mother, she knew better. She said our family had a gift that skipped generations. Her grandfather had it, and Dad had it, and now—" She gestured toward the living room where Liam sat. "Liam has it," Sarah finished. "It started when he was about 18 months old," Jennifer explained, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. "He'd look at people and say things, accurate things about their feelings, their past, their pain. At first, I thought he was just parroting things he'd overheard. But then he started doing it with complete strangers, people we'd never met, situations he couldn't possibly know about." Sarah thought about Liam's words in the forest, about her sister, about Rex's trauma. "Has he been evaluated? By doctors, psychologists?" "3 different child psychologists," Jennifer said. "They all say the same thing. His cognitive and emotional development is years beyond his age. His empathy scores are off the charts, but none of them can explain how he knows the specific things he knows. One doctor suggested eidetic memory combined with incredible pattern recognition. Another talked about heightened mirror neurons, but none of it really explains it." A crash from the living room made them both jump. They rushed back to find Liam standing in front of the fireplace mantel, staring up at a photograph. He'd knocked over his cup of juice in his haste to get there. Rex stood beside him, also staring at the photograph, his tail wagging slowly. The photo showed a man in police uniform, tall, broad-shouldered, with kind eyes and a gentle smile, kneeling beside a German Shepherd. The dog was magnificent, alert and proud, wearing a K-9 unit badge on his collar. Man and dog both looked directly at the camera with an unmistakable bond visible even in the still image. "That's Grandpa and Duke," Liam said softly, his small finger touching the glass. "They were best friends." Sarah moved closer, studying the photograph. Detective James Walsh had died 4 years ago. She'd been with the department for 4 years, meaning their time never overlapped. But looking at his face now, she felt a strange recognition, as if some part of her had always known him. "Liam talks to that picture," Jennifer said quietly. "Has since he was old enough to notice it. He tells me things about my father that I never shared with him, stories from Dad's career, cases he worked on. I kept all of Dad's old case files in the attic. I've checked some of Liam's stories against the files. They're accurate." Officer Chen appeared in the doorway, his phone still in his hand. "Martinez, the captain wants to see you tomorrow morning. He's reviewed William's body camera footage," he says. Chen paused, searching for words. "He says he's never seen anything like it in 30 years on the force." Sarah nodded absently, her attention still fixed on the photograph. Something about it nagged at her, a detail that felt important. Then Liam spoke again, and the entire room fell silent. "Grandpa knew about the bad man before the bad man knew he was bad," the boy said, his voice taking on that eerie, timeless quality. "Grandpa and Duke found the lost girl when everyone else said she was dead. They found her in the dark place, and she got to go home to her mommy. That's why Grandpa is a hero." Jennifer gasped. "The Melissa Hartman case. Oh my God, Liam, how do you?" "The lost girl was 7, Liam continued, his eyes distant as if seeing something beyond the present moment. "She was gone for 4 days. Everyone was looking in the wrong places, but Grandpa knew. He could feel where she was. Duke could smell her even when nobody else's dogs could. They found her in the old factory by the river where the bad man put her. She was scared and hurt but alive. Grandpa saved her." Sarah's heart pounded. She pulled out her phone, quickly searching for the case. The Melissa Hartman abduction had happened 19 years ago, a high-profile case that had made national news. A 7-year-old girl vanished from her school playground. Massive search efforts found nothing. Then on the 4th day, Detective James Walsh and his K9 Duke had found her in an abandoned factory, alive but traumatized, hidden in a location that the primary search teams had already cleared. The case had made Walsh a local hero. It had also cemented his reputation as someone who possessed an almost supernatural instinct for finding lost souls. "That case happened 15 years before you were born," Sarah said to Liam, her voice unsteady. "How do you know these details?" Liam turned from the photograph and his blue eyes shimmered with tears. "Grandpa tells me, not with words, but I can hear him anyway. He's proud of me. He says I have the same gift he had. He says I have to use it to help people like he did, like you do." Rex suddenly stood at attention, his ears perked forward, staring at a point in the room where nothing visible existed. A low whine escaped his throat, not distress but recognition. His tail wagged faster. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. The hair on Sarah's arm stood on end. She'd experienced enough strange moments tonight that she couldn't dismiss what her senses were telling her. Something was here, something beyond normal perception. "He's here now," Liam said simply. "Grandpa comes sometimes to check on me and Mommy. Duke comes too. They're happy that Rex found me. They're happy that you took care of me, Officer Sarah." Jennifer made a choked sound, her hand covering her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. "Daddy," she whispered to the empty air. Rex walked to the center of the room and sat down, his gaze fixed on that same invisible point. His tail continued its steady rhythm. Whatever he sensed, it didn't alarm him. If anything, he seemed comforted by it. Officer Chen had gone pale. Officer Williams, who just entered the room, stopped dead in the doorway, his eyes wide. The paramedics exchanged nervous glances. "Grandpa says that Officer Sarah needs to stop being sad about her sister," Liam said, his child's voice carrying the weight of a message from beyond. "He says Rebecca is okay now. She's not in pain anymore. She's sorry that Sarah hurt so much. She wants Sarah to forgive herself and be happy again." Sarah's knees went weak for the second time that night. She grabbed the back of the couch for support. Rebecca, her sister's name, spoken by this child who couldn't possibly know it, delivered as a message from a dead detective she'd never met. "This isn't possible," Officer Williams breathed. "This is absolutely not possible." "Grandpa says Duke and Rex have the same soul," Liam continued, seemingly oblivious to the adult's reactions. "Not the same dog, but the same spirit. That's why Rex understood me in the woods. That's why they understand everything. Good dogs always understand. They're angels with fur." Rex's whine grew louder, more insistent. Then he did something that made every person in the room freeze in shock. He bowed his head, his front legs extending in a classic submissive posture of respect, directed at the empty space before him. A veteran police K-9, trained to show deference only to his handler, was bowing to something none of them could see. Something that Liam could see clearly. "Thank you, Grandpa," Liam said, smiling at the invisible presence. "I love you too, and Duke, you're such a good boy, the best boy, just like Rex." The temperature returned to normal. The oppressive feeling of presence lifted. Rex stood up, shook himself, and returned to his normal state, alert, professional, ready for duty. Whatever had been in the room was gone. Sarah sank onto the couch, her hands trembling. Officer Chen sat down heavily beside her, his face ashen. The paramedics stared at each other in silent communication, clearly wondering if they should report what they'd just witnessed or pretend it never happened. Jennifer wrapped her arms around Liam, holding him close. "Baby, was that really Grandpa?" "Uh-huh," Liam nodded, already moving on with the easy acceptance of a 3-year-old. "He visits lots. You just can't see him like I can." Sarah looked at Jennifer Henderson and saw her own questions reflected back. How is this possible? What does this mean? What do we do with this information? But underneath those questions was something else. A profound sense of wonder, of possibility, of a universe far stranger and more beautiful than they'd ever imagined. "I think," Sarah said slowly, "that your father's legacy lives on in ways that go far beyond normal inheritance." Jennifer nodded, fresh tears sliding down her cheeks. "He always said the gift was real. He said some souls are bridges between worlds. I never fully believed him until tonight." Outside, the storm had passed. Tomorrow would bring questions, reports, and attempts to rationalize the impossible. But right now, in this moment, everyone in that room knew they'd witnessed something that transcended explanation, a connection that bridged not just the living and the dead, but the seen and unseen worlds that exist alongside our own. The Maplewood Police Department's conference room had never felt so tense. Captain Michael Rodriguez sat at the head of the table, his weathered face unreadable as he watched the body camera footage for the 4th time. Around him, 5 other senior officers sat in silence, their eyes fixed on the screen where Liam Henderson's small voice spoke impossible truths to Officer Martinez and her K-9 partner. Sarah stood against the back wall, Rex lying calmly at her feet. She'd barely slept, spending most of the night replaying every moment in her mind, trying to find rational explanations that simply didn't exist. Officer Chen sat beside her, equally exhausted, while Officer Williams operated the video equipment with hands that still trembled slightly. "Rewind to the part about the K-9's previous handler," Captain Rodriguez ordered, his voice gruff. Williams complied, and once again they watched 3-year-old Liam place his hand on Rex's scar and speak about Tom Davidson, details that weren't in any accessible database, details that only Sarah and a handful of department personnel knew. Lieutenant Sarah Brennan, the department's chief psychologist and a vocal skeptic of anything supernatural, leaned forward. "There has to be a logical explanation. Children can be remarkably perceptive. Perhaps he overheard conversations, saw documents." "He was lost in the woods for nearly an hour," Chen interrupted, his usual deference to rank absent. "He had no contact with anyone except a coyote and eventually us. There was no opportunity for him to access information." "The coyote incident alone defies explanation," added Sergeant Marcus Webb, head of the K-9 unit and Rex's original trainer. "I've worked with police dogs for 20 years. What Rex did, the way he responded to that child, violates every training protocol, every behavioral pattern I've ever documented." Captain Rodriguez paused the video on a frame showing Liam's face as he spoke to Sarah about her sister. The boy's expression was serene, ancient, heartbreaking. "Martinez, you're certain you never mentioned your sister to anyone in the department?" Sarah's throat tightened. "I've never mentioned Rebecca to anyone, sir. Not in 7 years. It's not in my personnel file. It's not in any official records. The only people who knew about her overdose were my immediate family, and they're all in California. Yet this child knew her name, Rodriguez said quietly. Knew the cause of death, knew your guilt. He looked up at Sarah, and she saw something she'd never seen in her captain's eyes before: uncertainty. Fear, even. I don't believe in psychics, Martinez. I don't believe in ghosts or telepathy or any of that. But I believe my officers, and I believe evidence. Lieutenant Brennan shifted uncomfortably. Captain, with respect, we need to consider alternative explanations before we jump to. To what? Rodriguez cut her off. To acknowledging that something happened in those woods that we can't explain. Sarah, play the segment with Detective Walsh again. Williams forwarded the footage to the scene in the Henderson living room. The room fell silent as they watched Liam describe the Melissa Hartman case with perfect accuracy. A case that occurred 15 years before his birth, details that were never made fully public. Sergeant Webb suddenly stood up. I need to say something. His voice carried the weight of a confession. I knew James Walsh. I worked with him and Duke for 3 years before I transferred to K-9 training. Walsh was different. He'd walk into a scene and just know things. We'd be searching for a missing person, going in circles, and Walsh would suddenly stop, look at Duke, and they'd take off in a direction that made no logical sense. And they'd find the person, every single time. That's good police work and a well-trained dog, Brennan argued, but her voice lacked conviction. No, Webb shook his head firmly. It was more than that. I remember one case, a teenager who'd run away. We'd been searching for 2 days. Walsh showed up on day 3, spent 5 minutes at the kid's house, then told us exactly where to find him. Said the kid was hiding in his uncle's hunting cabin 3 counties away. We asked how he knew. Walsh just said he felt it. We found the kid exactly where Walsh said he'd be. Rodriguez drummed his fingers on the table. I've pulled Walsh's case files. His solve rate was 93%. The department average is 61%. His missing persons recovery rate was even more impressive, 87% found alive. Statistical anomaly, Brennan said weakly. For 32 years, Webb challenged. Come on, Sarah, at some point anomaly becomes pattern. The lieutenant fell silent, her skepticism crumbling under the weight of evidence. Rodriguez stood, walking to the window overlooking the parking lot where media vans had been camped since dawn. This morning, I received calls from the FBI, 2 university parapsychology departments, and 3 television networks. Everyone wants to talk to the miracle child who survived the woods. The mayor's office is demanding a press conference. Child Protective Services wants to evaluate Liam Henderson to ensure he's not being coached or exploited. He's not being exploited, Sarah said fiercely. His mother is terrified of what people will think, what this attention will do to her son. She's trying to protect him. I know, Rodriguez said. That's why I'm keeping this footage internal for now, but we need to understand what we're dealing with here. He turned to face his officers. I need honesty from everyone in this room. What do you think happened in those woods? Silence stretched for a long moment. Then Officer Chen spoke up. I think we encountered something that doesn't fit in our normal framework of understanding. I think that child has an ability, a gift, his mother called it, that allows him to perceive things beyond normal human senses. And I think we'd be fools to dismiss it just because it scares us. It does scare me, admitted Officer Williams. I grew up Catholic. I've seen some things I couldn't explain. But watching that footage, being there in that house when the kid talked to someone we couldn't see, when Rex bowed to empty air, I can't unsee that. I can't unknow what I witnessed. Sergeant Webb nodded slowly. Duke Walsh's K-9 died within a week of Walsh's death. The vet said it was heart failure, but I always thought it was grief. That dog lost his will to live when Walsh died. They were connected on a level beyond handler and animal. He looked down at Rex, who gazed back with intelligent eyes. What if that connection doesn't end with death? What if some bonds are permanent? Lieutenant Brennan finally spoke, her voice subdued. I've spent my career explaining behavior through psychology and neuroscience, but I watched that footage. I heard that child speak with vocabulary and emotional intelligence that shouldn't exist in a 3-year-old brain. The neurological development required for that level of empathy and perception doesn't occur until at least age 7, usually later. She paused, struggling with her next words. I don't have an explanation. And that terrifies me more than any supernatural theory. Captain Rodriguez returned to his seat, suddenly looking every one of his 58 years. Here's what we're going to do. This stays confidential. The footage doesn't leave this room without my authorization. Martinez, I'm putting you on administrative leave. Sir, Sarah started to protest. Paid leave, Rodriguez continued. Not disciplinary. You've been through a traumatic experience and you need time to process it. More importantly, I want you to maintain contact with the Henderson family. If that boy has the same gift his grandfather had, if he can truly perceive things beyond normal human senses, then we need to understand it. Not exploit it, understand it. He looked around the table at each officer. James Walsh was one of the finest officers this department ever had. He saved lives. He brought closure to families who'd given up hope. If his grandson has inherited that ability, we have a responsibility to protect him, to help him develop it safely, not to turn him into a circus act or a departmental tool. What about the media? Williams asked. They're not going to let this go. We release a standard statement. Child found unharmed, routine search and rescue operation, family requests privacy. We don't mention the unusual circumstances. We don't mention Walsh's connection. We protect that family. Rodriguez's tone made it clear this wasn't up for debate. Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, Rodriguez said grimly, because eventually this is going to come out. People are going to want answers, and when that day comes, we better have our story straight. He looked directly at Sarah. You believe it, don't you? What that child can do. Sarah thought about Liam's words in the forest, about Rebecca's message, about Rex's inexplicable behavior. She thought about the presence in that living room that everyone had felt but nobody could see. She thought about a legacy of gift passed from grandfather to grandson across the barrier of death. Yes, sir, she said firmly. I believe it. I don't understand it, but I believe it. Rodriguez nodded slowly. Then I guess we're all believers now. God help us. The meeting adjourned, but nobody moved immediately. They sat in the weight of what they'd acknowledged. That reality was far stranger and more mysterious than their training had prepared them for. That some things existed beyond the reach of science and skepticism. That a 3-year-old boy had shown them a glimpse of something profound and inexplicable. As Sarah left the conference room with Rex, Sergeant Webb caught her arm. Martinez, take care of that family. If Liam is anything like his grandfather, he's going to need guidance. Walsh struggled with his gift sometimes, the weight of knowing things, feeling things that others couldn't feel. He found ways to channel it into good work, but it wasn't easy. Did he ever talk about where it came from? Sarah asked. Webb shook his head. He called it thin places, spaces where the barrier between worlds becomes permeable. He said some people are born with the ability to navigate those spaces, to perceive what exists beyond normal sight. He said it was both a blessing and a burden. He glanced back at the conference room. For what it's worth, I think Walsh would be proud that his grandson found someone like you, someone willing to believe, someone willing to protect. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. I just hope I'm up for whatever comes next. You found a lost child in a storm, Webb said with a slight smile. You witnessed the impossible and didn't run from it. You're up for it, Martinez, and Rex clearly agrees. The German shepherd looked up at the mention of his name, his tail wagging. Whatever had changed in that forest, whatever connection had formed between him and Liam Henderson, it had also changed Rex. Sarah could see it in his eyes, a deeper awareness, a sense of purpose that went beyond training. They walked through the station together, officers nodding respectfully as they passed. Word had spread, as it always did in a police department. Everyone knew something extraordinary had happened last night, even if they didn't know the full details. As Sarah reached the exit, her phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer Henderson. Liam keeps asking about Rex. Says he needs to see him again. Is that possible? Sarah looked down at her partner, who gazed back with those knowing amber eyes. What do you think, boy? Ready for another visit with our miracle child? Rex's tail wagged harder, his answer clear. Some connections, once forged, couldn't be broken. Some mysteries demanded to be explored further. And some children carried gifts that would change everyone they encountered. Sarah Martinez was beginning to understand that her life had been divided into two parts, before she met Liam Henderson, and after. And the after was going to be far more interesting than she ever imagined. 3 weeks had passed since that stormy night in the woods, and Sarah Martinez found herself driving toward the Henderson house for the 5th time. What had started as a welfare check had evolved into something far more significant, a connection that seemed to benefit everyone involved, especially Rex. The German Shepherd sat in the passenger seat, his usual spot during off-duty visits. The moment Sarah had told him they were going to see Liam, Rex's entire demeanor had changed. His tail wagged continuously, his ears perked forward with anticipation, and he'd actually whined at the door, behavior Sarah had never witnessed in their 3 years together. You really love that kid, don't you? Sarah said, reaching over to scratch behind Rex's ear. The dog turned to look at her, and she could swear she saw understanding in those amber eyes, not just canine intelligence, but something deeper, more profound. Her phone rang. Captain Rodriguez. Martinez, how's the Henderson situation? He asked without preamble. I'm heading there now, sir. 5th visit this month. Good. I got a call from Child Protective Services. They cleared the family, no signs of coaching or exploitation. The psychologist who evaluated Liam said he's, and I quote, the most emotionally well-adjusted child with extraordinary perceptual abilities she's ever assessed. Whatever that means. Sarah smiled. It means Liam is exactly who he appears to be, sir. A normal 3-year-old with an abnormal gift. The FBI called again, Rodriguez said with a sigh. They want to interview the family about Liam's abilities. I told them to get a warrant, which they won't because there's no crime, but they're persistent. Are we going to have problems? Not if we protect that family, which is exactly what we're doing. He paused. Martinez, I've been reading Walsh's old case files, really reading them. There are patterns, cases where he shouldn't have known what he knew, shouldn't have found what he found. But he did, consistently, for 3 decades. And nobody questioned it because results matter more than methods in this job. Do you think the department knew, Sarah asked, about his abilities? I think people suspected but chose not to look too closely. Walsh was a hero. He saved lives. Sometimes we don't question miracles, we just accept them gratefully. Rodriguez's voice softened. Keep visiting that family, Martinez. I have a feeling this story isn't over yet. Sarah pulled up to the Henderson house, and before she'd even opened her door, the front door burst open and Liam came running out, his face lit up with pure joy. Jennifer followed at a more measured pace, smiling at the familiar scene. Rex, Officer Sarah, Liam shouted, his small legs pumping as fast as they could carry him. Sarah released Rex from the vehicle, and the normally disciplined K9 bounded toward the child with enthusiastic abandon. They met in the middle of the lawn, Liam throwing his arms around Rex's neck, while the German Shepherd's tail wagged so hard his entire back end moved. The dog licked the boy's face, making Liam dissolve into giggles. They're like old friends, Jennifer said as Sarah approached. Every time you leave, Liam counts down the days until you come back. I've never seen him bond with anyone so quickly. The feeling is mutual, Sarah admitted. Rex has been different since that night, calmer at home, less reactive to loud noises. It's like Liam did something to heal whatever trauma Rex was carrying. Jennifer's expression turned thoughtful. Can we talk while they play? There's something I need to show you. Sarah nodded, following Jennifer into the house while keeping an eye on Liam and Rex through the window. The boy was now lying on the grass, and Rex had curled up beside him, the child's head resting on the dog's side like a living pillow. Jennifer led Sarah to the dining room table where several thick folders lay open, Detective James Walsh's personal case files. I finally got up the courage to go through Dad's things in the attic. These are his private notes, not the official reports. And Sarah, you need to see this. She opened one folder, revealing handwritten notes in neat script. The case header read, Hartman, Melissa, age 7, abduction. Sarah leaned in, reading Walsh's personal observations. Day 3, the dreams are getting stronger. I see her in darkness, hear water running nearby. She's cold, scared, but alive. Duke is restless. He senses her too, even from miles away. Tomorrow we search the industrial district, specifically near the river. I know she's there. I don't know how I know, but I do. He documented it, Sarah breathed. His ability, he wrote it all down. There's more. Jennifer flipped through several folders. Each contained similar notes, references to dreams, feelings, instincts that defied explanation but led to successful resolutions. My father knew what he could do. He struggled with it, especially early in his career. He saw things, felt things, and had no framework to understand them. She pulled out a letter, yellowed with age. This is from my great-grandfather to my grandmother. It's dated 1952. Sarah read the faded writing. My dearest Margaret, I write this so you might understand what runs in our blood. Since childhood, I have perceived what others cannot, the thoughts of the dying, the locations of the lost, the intentions of the wicked. In our family, this gift appears once each generation, skipping like stones across water. Your grandfather possessed it. I possess it. Your children will not, but perhaps your grandchildren will. It is both blessing and curse. Use it to help, never to harm. Trust the animals, for they see what we see. They are our guides in the thin places between worlds. With love, your father. Sarah sat back heavily. So it is hereditary, a documented family trait going back generations. My father never showed me this letter, Jennifer said quietly. But Liam found it last week. He was playing in the attic, somehow pulled out the exact box it was hidden in and brought it down saying, Mommy, look what Grandpa wanted you to read. Her voice cracked. He's 3 years old, Sarah. He can barely read simple words, but he found a letter written 70 years ago and knew it was important. Through the window, they watched Liam sit up and place both hands on Rex's head. The dog went very still, his eyes closing. It looked almost like a blessing or a healing ritual from some ancient practice. He does that, Jennifer whispered, puts his hands on Rex and just, I don't know, communicates with him somehow, and afterward Rex seems more at peace. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. Rex has had nightmares since his first handler died. Tom Davidson, the man who trained him, loved him. After Tom's death, Rex would wake up howling sometimes. It took months of behavioral therapy to help him cope. She paused, watching the tender scene on the lawn. He hasn't had a nightmare in 3 weeks, not since we started visiting Liam. Maybe that's Liam's purpose, Jennifer said softly. Not to be studied or exploited, but to heal. To help those who are hurting, whether they're human or animal, just like my father did. A memory surfaced in Sarah's mind, her last conversation with Liam during their previous visit. The boy had looked at her seriously and said, You're not as sad anymore, Officer Sarah. Rebecca is happy that you're happy. She watches you sometimes, you know. She's proud of her big sister. Sarah had gone home that night and, for the first time in 7 years, had looked through photos of Rebecca without crying. She'd remembered the good times instead of fixating on the tragic end. Something had shifted in her, loosened by a 3-year-old's impossible knowledge and genuine compassion. He's helped me too, Sarah admitted. I've carried guilt about my sister's death for 7 years. Somehow, Liam made me understand that I couldn't have saved her, that her choices were her own. A therapist couldn't do what a 3-year-old did in one conversation. Jennifer nodded. He tells me things about my father, memories I'd forgotten, moments I never knew about. Last week he described in perfect detail a camping trip Dad took me on when I was 5. I hadn't thought about that trip in 30 years, but Liam told me what we ate for breakfast, what songs Dad sang, how he taught me to identify birds. Tears streamed down her face. It's like having Dad back just for little moments. Outside, Liam stood up and waved at them through the window. "Mommy, Officer Sarah, come see. Rex wants to show you something." They went out to find Rex sitting perfectly still, his posture alert but relaxed. Liam stood beside him, one small hand resting on the dog's head. "Rex wants Officer Sarah to know that he's not afraid anymore," Liam said with absolute certainty. "The loud noises don't make him scared now. He remembers that he's brave. He remembers that Tom, his first friend, would want him to be happy, not sad. Just like Rebecca wants Officer Sarah to be happy." Sarah knelt down and Rex immediately came to her, pressing his head against her chest in a gesture of pure affection. She wrapped her arms around him, burying her face in his fur, and felt something she hadn't felt in years, complete peace. "Thank you, Liam," she whispered. "For whatever you did, however you did it, thank you." "I didn't do anything," Liam said simply. "I just helped Rex remember who he really is. Sometimes people and animals forget the good things because the bad things are so loud. I just make the good things louder." Jennifer picked up her son, holding him close. "My father's gift was finding the lost. I think Liam's gift is healing the broken." Sarah stood, watching this remarkable child who spoke with the wisdom of ages, who could comfort a traumatized K-9 and a guilt-ridden officer with equal ease, who carried the legacy of his grandfather while forging his own unique path. "Your father would be so proud," Sarah said to Jennifer. "He is proud," Liam said matter-of-factly. "Grandpa told me. He and Duke watch us sometimes. They're happy that Rex found a new friend. They're happy that you came into our lives, Officer Sarah. They say you're family now." Sarah felt that truth settle into her bones. Somehow, through a lost child in a storm, through impossible knowledge and unexplainable connections, she'd found a family she didn't know she needed. "Yeah," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I think we are family now." Rex barked once, sharp and joyful as if sealing the declaration. Liam laughed and the sound was like sunlight breaking through clouds, pure, bright healing. Some bonds transcend logic. Some connections heal wounds that medicine cannot touch. Some children are born not just to witness the mysteries of the universe, but to channel them toward love, toward healing, toward hope. And sometimes, a lost 3-year-old and a traumatized police dog can save each other in ways that nobody could have predicted. This was one of those times. 6 months after that stormy night in the woods, Sarah Martinez stood in the Maplewood Community Center, watching Liam Henderson, now 4 years old, sit cross-legged on the floor surrounded by 5 children and 3 therapy dogs. The children were all patients from the local children's hospital, referred to this experimental program that had become known as Liam's Circle. It had started small. After word quietly spread through the department about Liam's abilities, a child psychologist who specialized in trauma had approached Jennifer Henderson with a proposal. Would Liam be willing to spend time with children who were struggling with grief, fear, or emotional trauma? Jennifer had been hesitant, protective of her son, but Liam himself had insisted. "I want to help, Mommy," he'd said with that ancient wisdom in his young eyes. "That's what Grandpa did. That's what I'm supposed to do too." Now, twice a week, Liam met with small groups of children. The therapy dogs, including Rex, who'd become an unofficial therapy animal, provided comfort while Liam somehow helped these hurting children find peace. Sarah watched as a 7-year-old girl named Emma, who hadn't spoken since witnessing her father's death in a car accident 6 months ago, sat beside Liam. The little boy placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "Your daddy isn't in pain anymore," Liam said softly. "He wants you to know that. He's sorry he had to leave, but he's watching over you. He says you have his smile, and every time you smile, he feels happy." Emma's lip trembled. Then, for the first time in 6 months, she spoke. "Really?" Her voice was barely a whisper, rusty from disuse. "Really?" Liam confirmed. "He's here right now. He's standing right behind you. He's so proud of how brave you've been." Emma turned around, seeing nothing but her face transformed. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she was smiling, actually smiling. "Hi, Daddy," she whispered to the empty air. "I miss you so much." Dr. Rachel Foster, the program's supervising psychologist, stood beside Sarah, watching with tears in her own eyes. "I've been in this field for 20 years, she said quietly. "I've never seen anything like what that child can do." Emma hasn't responded to any traditional therapy, but 15 minutes with Liam and she's speaking again. "How do you explain it?" Sarah asked. "In your professional opinion?" Dr. Foster shook her head slowly. "I can't. I've tried. I've written 3 different papers attempting to contextualize Liam's abilities within established psychological frameworks. None of them work. He operates on a level of perception and empathy that shouldn't exist in a 4-year-old brain, arguably shouldn't exist in any human brain." She paused. "But it does exist. He exists, and he's helping children I couldn't help." Rex lay beside Liam, his gentle presence providing comfort to the children. A small boy with leukemia, 6-year-old Marcus, had his head resting against Rex's side, his thin fingers stroking the dog's fur. Liam looked over at Marcus and smiled. "Rex says you're a warrior," Liam told him. "He says you're one of the bravest people he's ever met. The medicine makes you feel yucky, but it's making you stronger. You're going to win this fight." Marcus looked up with hollow eyes that had seen too much suffering for his age. "How does he know?" "Rex knows a lot of things," Liam said simply. "He's been scared too. He's been hurt too, but he keeps being brave every day, just like you." Marcus hugged Rex tighter, and the German Shepherd made a soft, comforting sound deep in his chest. Sarah watched her partner, the dog who'd been so traumatized, so damaged, now serving as a vessel of comfort for children facing their own traumas. Liam hadn't just healed Rex, he'd given him a new purpose. Officer Chen appeared at Sarah's elbow, his face serious. "Martinez, we've got a situation. 9-year-old girl missing from Riverside Park. Been gone for 3 hours. Ground search isn't finding anything. Captain wants Rex on scene." Sarah's heart immediately shifted into professional mode. "Let me get him." "Actually," Chen interrupted, "the captain wants to know if Liam might be willing to help." Sarah turned to stare at him. "You're serious? You want to bring a 4-year-old to an active search?" The girl's mother is desperate. She heard about Liam somehow, probably through the hospital grapevine. She's asking specifically for him. Says if he can help other children, maybe he can help find hers. Chen's expression was conflicted. "I know it's unprecedented. I know it's probably a terrible idea, but the captain wants to ask and the family is requesting it." Sarah looked across the room where Jennifer Henderson was helping serve snacks to the children. She caught Jennifer's eye and gestured her over, quickly explaining the situation. Jennifer's first instinct was clear refusal. Sarah could see it in her face. But then Liam spoke up, having somehow heard the conversation despite being across the room. "I can help find her," he said with quiet confidence. "She's not far. She's scared, but she's okay. She's hiding because she's mad at her mommy, but she doesn't know how to come back now." Everyone froze. Dr. Foster's eyes went wide. "Liam, how do you know that?" Liam tilted his head as if listening to something only he could hear. "Grandpa told me. And Duke. They're already with her, keeping her safe until we get there. She's by the water, under the big bridge where the ducks live. She fell asleep in a little cave place." Jennifer knelt down in front of her son. "Baby, are you sure? You don't have to do this." "I want to help, Mommy. That's why I have the gift. To find people who are lost like Grandpa did. To heal people who are hurt. That's my job." Tears filled Jennifer's eyes, but she nodded. "Okay, but I'm coming with you." 20 minutes later, Sarah, Rex, Liam, Jennifer, and Officer Chen stood at Riverside Park. The missing girl's mother, Karen Peterson, rushed over when she saw them. "You're the special boy," she said to Liam, her voice desperate. "Please, please help me find my daughter, Sophie. I know I shouldn't ask this of a child, but I'm begging you. She's been gone for almost 4 hours now." Liam took her hand gently. "Sophie loves you very much. She was angry about the new baby coming. She thought you wouldn't love her anymore, but she does know you love her. She's just scared to come back because she thinks she's in big trouble." Karen's hand flew to her mouth. She was visibly pregnant, about 6 months along. "How did you? We only told Sophie about the baby this morning. She was upset, ran off. That's why she's missing. But I never told anyone." "Sophie's under the old stone bridge," Liam said calmly, pointing downstream. "She found a little space behind the bushes where the ground is dry. She fell asleep crying. She didn't mean to stay gone so long." The search coordinator, who'd been listening skeptically, got on his radio. "All units converge on the old stone bridge, downstream about half a mile. Check behind vegetation for concealed spaces." "I'll show you," Liam said, starting to walk. Rex immediately fell into step beside him, and Sarah realized her K9 partner was now taking direction from a 4-year-old child as naturally as he took direction from her. They made their way along the river path, Karen Peterson following with desperate hope, Jennifer Henderson close behind her son. Liam walked with certainty, occasionally pausing as if listening to instructions no one else could hear. "Duke says she's just around this corner," he announced. "Rex can smell her now too." Sure enough, Rex's nose went down, his tail straightening, his indication that he'd caught a scent. They rounded a bend where an old stone bridge crossed the river, its foundation heavy with brush and undergrowth. "Sophie," Liam called out clearly, "it's okay to come out now. Your mommy isn't mad, she's just worried. She loves you so much. The new baby isn't going to change that. Your mommy's heart is big enough for both of you." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a small, dirty face appeared from behind a bush near the bridge foundation. Sophie Peterson, 9 years old, her face streaked with tears and dirt, emerged from her hiding spot. "Mommy," she said in a tiny voice. Karen rushed forward, sweeping her daughter into her arms, sobbing with relief. "Oh baby, oh my baby, you're safe, you're okay." "I'm sorry, Mommy," Sophie cried. "I was mad and I ran and then I got lost and I was scared and I didn't know how to come back." "It's okay, sweetheart, it's okay. I love you so much. Nothing will ever change that, nothing." The search coordinator stood in stunned silence, then spoke into his radio. "Missing child located, safe and unharmed. Repeat, child is safe." He looked at Liam with undisguised awe. "Son, how did you know?" Liam just smiled his gentle, knowing smile. "My grandpa and his dog Duke helped me. They're really good at finding people." Sarah watched the reunion, watched this miracle child who'd brought together the living and the dead, the lost and the found, the broken and the healed. Rex sat beside Liam, and for just a moment, Sarah could have sworn she saw 2 dogs sitting there, Rex, and beside him, a ghostly outline of another German shepherd. Duke, perhaps, still serving alongside the grandson of his beloved handler. Officer Chen wiped his eyes unashamedly. "I'm putting this in my report, and I don't care who thinks I'm crazy." "We're all witnesses," Sarah agreed, "all of us." In the weeks and months that followed, Liam's gift became an open secret within the community. The police department never officially acknowledged his abilities, but families seeking help found their way to him. Jennifer carefully vetted each request, protecting her son while allowing him to fulfill what he believed was his purpose. Liam continued his therapy sessions, helping traumatized children find peace. Rex officially became a registered therapy dog, working alongside his young friend. Sarah found that her own life had been transformed. Her grief over Rebecca had softened into acceptance. Her work now had deeper meaning, and she'd found a family in the most unexpected place. The media attention eventually died down, as it always does, but those who'd witnessed Liam's gift never forgot. Captain Rodriguez kept the body camera footage in a locked safe, knowing that someday, when Liam was older and could make his own choices about coming forward, it might serve as validation of something the world needed to see. Dr. Foster continued to study Liam with Jennifer's permission, documenting his development, hoping to understand how his abilities might help advance human understanding of consciousness, empathy, and the thin barriers between worlds. And Detective James Walsh's case files remained in Jennifer's attic, a testament to a legacy that spanned generations, a legacy of service, of compassion, of using extraordinary gifts for ordinary good. One evening, as Sarah and Rex prepared to leave after a visit, Liam hugged them both goodbye. "Officer Sarah," he said, looking up at her with those impossibly wise eyes. "Yes, buddy. Thank you for believing in me. Grandpa says that's the most important thing, to be believed when you tell the truth, even when the truth sounds impossible." Sarah knelt down, pulling him into a tight hug. "Liam, you changed my life. You healed my partner. You brought hope to people who'd lost it. Thank you for sharing your gift with us." "It's not my gift," Liam said seriously. "It's everyone's gift. I just help people remember that love doesn't end, that the people we lose aren't really gone, that there's more to the world than what we can see." He smiled. "Grandpa taught me that, and now I get to teach other people." As Sarah drove home that night, Rex sleeping peacefully in the passenger seat, she thought about the journey that had started with a lost child in a storm. She thought about impossible knowledge, unexplainable connections, and a 3-year-old who'd looked at her traumatized K9 and simply known what he needed to hear. Some would call it supernatural. Others would search for scientific explanations. But Sarah knew the truth was both simpler and more profound than either label could capture. The truth was that some souls were born as bridges between the living and the dead, the seen and unseen, the broken and the healed. Liam Henderson was one of those souls, carrying forward his grandfather's legacy while creating his own. And in doing so, he'd reminded everyone who encountered him that the universe was far more mysterious, far more compassionate, and far more beautiful than anyone dared to believe. Some stories don't have neat endings because they're not really stories, they're ongoing journeys. Liam's journey was just beginning, but for all those he'd touched, for all those he'd healed, for all those he'd given hope, his impact was already immeasurable. And somewhere, perhaps in those thin places between worlds, Detective James Walsh and his faithful partner Duke watched over the boy who carried their legacy forward, proud beyond measure of the light he was bringing into the world. The light that couldn't be explained, only witnessed. The light that changed everything. The end.